Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. My name is Josh Takimoto, and today I'm solo, but we're going to be talking about excuses. And this topic actually came to mind because I was talking to my wife, and she's a high school PE teacher, and she was just sharing the story the other day about how I think they were doing push-up testing, and one of the known athletes in her class was was there and doing the push-up test, and they basically came up with a couple of excuses why they weren't able to do as many push-ups as they possibly could. And it just made me think, like, it drives me nuts when anybody, but specifically athletes, their first thought is to make excuses. Their first thought, our first thought, because I've been there before, I've done it plenty of times, is to make excuses. Like, there's no way that the mistake could actually just be our fault. There must have been some external thing that caused the mistake to happen, that forced me to make the error. It wasn't just that I had a mental mistake or a physical mistake. It was something else. And maybe it was someone else's fault, but not mine. It couldn't have been mine. So let me think of all the reasons why it wasn't me. And then let me try to explain that to everybody around so that they know it wasn't my fault. That drives me crazy. Excuses drive me crazy. And it's not just a sports thing, it's really anywhere. When people have to make excuses, and I say have to make excuses because I think some people have to. I think they can't help it, but just first thought, it's like their ego is telling them, "Hey, whatever you do, protect us because we can't handle the idea that maybe we just made a mistake. Maybe that mistake was just our fault, and that we just need to own up to it and own and take responsibility for whatever happened." The ego's like, no, 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 no. We're going to think of everything else, but you're not going to take the fall for this one. That's what it feels like sometimes. And some people are so quick, especially in the athletic world. I think we've all seen it, whether it's a little league game, whether it's a competitive high school team or college team, sometimes even the pros. And honestly, a lot of times, and I'm sure you guys have seen this and can relate, how many times does this happen when you're playing? I'm 33 and I've played in plenty of adult rec softball leagues. How many times does it happen out there? There's that one dude that's out there. It's like, "Oh, is this a different bat? Did you guys get a different bat? Oh, the other bat was a lot better. I could hit better with that bat." Okay, cool, dude. Oh, did they not rake the infield this time? That's why I missed 5 ground balls. Okay. Oh, did they cut the grass? Oh, it's usually not this long. And then next week it's like, oh, they did cut the grass. Usually I'm better and the grass is longer. What? It's always something. Oh, the sun was my eyes. Man, the sun's behind you. What do you mean the sun's in your eyes? There's always that one dude out there that just has to make excuses and can't just own up to the fact that, hey, maybe you just kind of suck today. Maybe you're just not very good today. Maybe the mistake was just your fault. They just can't do it. There's something in them that has to make the excuse. And I think what they don't realize is that everybody on the team around them is just rolling their eyes like, oh, here comes this dude again. Here he comes with his excuses. Always something, always someone else's fault. Man, just own up to it because we're actually more annoyed with you and your excuses than the mistake that was made. So just no more excuses. No more excuses. Just own up to it. Just own up to it. And I think, when we own up to it, in all seriousness, like that's a silly example, but like in all seriousness, when we make excuses, I think it prevents us from getting better. I mean, in all reality, like it just prevents us from getting better. When we make excuses, we spend more time trying to figure out all of the reasons why something wasn't our fault. We want to look from every single angle, every perspective to show people, no, this couldn't have been me. This was something else. But we spend so much time looking at all these angles and all these perspectives and all these ways that it couldn't be our fault that we waste valuable time that we could actually be looking at all the reasons why it was our fault and improving on those things. So that way, when that opportunity comes up next time, we're better for it. We've improved ourselves. We've identified those areas of weakness. And now we can lower the chances of that mistake happening again. But when we just make excuses, when we sit there and want to think and analyze all the reasons why it wasn't our fault, we are robbing ourselves of an opportunity to get better. And we're also robbing our teammates of giving them our best versions of ourselves. And so I think that the excuses are such a detriment to us as people. They're such a detriment to us as in our development as athletes, as coaches, as one day business people, one day being a mom or dad of children, of your own family. being a leader in your community, those excuses are never going to help us when it comes to those areas and being the best possible version of ourselves in those areas of our lives. Excuses delay areas that we need to work on. Excuses prevent us from being the very best version of ourselves. But it's easy to do because in the moment, of an excuse is like a band-aid. It makes us feel better in the moment because that excuse gives reason why a mistake happened. But the bottom line is the mistake still happened. You can't go back and change it. You making an excuse doesn't fix the problem. It's a band-aid. It makes you feel a little bit better because maybe it gives reason to why the mistake happened. But really, we just need to take responsibility for it, use it, allow it to improve us, and learn from it. And then it's like, hey, that mistake becomes valuable. Really, excuses have no value. It's like empty calories, right? Soda tastes good. Energy drinks taste good, but they're not really beneficial for us, right? Like water is good for us. It's better to drink that, but sometimes that soda tastes really good and we want to drink that because in the moment it tastes really good, but at the end of the day, it's not going to do anything for us. It's not going to benefit our bodies in any way. And so, it's just something that has been on my mind ever since my wife had mentioned that, and it is something that I'm passionate about. I think I've talked about this before on Character Combine, that podcast before. It's just something I just wish that, especially as leaders, I wish we would stop making so many excuses. And like I said, I'm talking about me too. This is not me pointing a finger at anybody. This is me, in fact, if anything, pointing a finger at myself, because there's so many times where something happens, and as a former athlete, as someone who, um, you know, is the leader in certain communities and certain areas of life, there's always that thing that's like, maybe it wasn't my fault. But then I try my best to prevent that from coming out because I know in the end, it's not going to benefit anybody. It's not going to benefit me. And more importantly, it's not going to benefit the people around me. And I remember, this is kind of a fun story, but when I was playing JV baseball at Casa Roble High School, I was playing for one of my favorite coaches of all time, Coach Jerry Feldman. Coach, I don't know if you listen to this, but you probably won't even remember this story because you've coached for so long and have so many stories like this, I'm sure. But this one really stuck out to me as far as how it affected me in my life. But I was pitching, and we were at home at Casa. We were on the Rock, which is what the JV field is known as, and I was not having a good day. I was missing my spots. I was giving up hits. I was walking guys. It was not a good situation for me or my team. And it was one of those situations. I know you've seen athletes do these kind of things. I kept going to the area of the mound where I was landing, where my land foot was. And I was kicking the dirt. I was kicking dirt out of the hole. I was pushing dirt in the hole. I was stomping the dirt, trying to figure out, air quotes, right? What about the mound was causing me to pitch so poorly that day? And after the fifth or sixth or seventh time of making a trip between pitches to figure out what was going on with the dirt, all of a sudden I hear a voice from the dugout say, "Hey, Taco." And I look up and I see Coach Feldman, who's looking at me, and he's kind of waving me down. And in that moment, I'm expecting he's going to give these motivational words of encouragement. He's going to say, "Hey, you got this. Keep going. You'll figure it out." But instead, he looks at me and he says, and I'll never forget, he says, "Fix the damn mound and pitch better." That was it. Those were his words of encouragement. And I remember in that moment thinking, okay, perfect. I guess we're done playing in the dirt. And then I just, kind of kept going. And I'm sure the game didn't get much better for me. I was pretty off that day. But what I appreciated about that moment was he was basically telling me, "Hey, stop making excuses. Your job is to pitch, and we need you to pitch better. The dirt is not going to affect it. It's not the mound's fault. You just got to do better. Stop making excuses because they're not going to help you." And that was something, probably one of the biggest life lessons I ever got from playing sports. And there's a bunch of life lessons that I've learned through playing sports, but that was one that's always stuck out to me because he kept it so simple as a coach. He kept it very simple, very concise, and just let me know. It's like, "Hey, you can kick that dirt all you want, but it's not gonna help you in this moment. You got to figure it out. You got to work through it. Keep going and persevere. Don't blame the dirt." And so, Coach Feldman, man, always appreciate and love you for that, because I think that was one of the greatest lessons I've ever learned playing sports, and it's always stuck with me. And who knows, maybe when I coach one day, I'll have the opportunity to share that same message with one of my athletes, and hopefully it will help them just as much. But um, yeah, man, again, I want to keep this one pretty short. I know it's not as interesting listening to just one person rant. So that's pretty much it, though. Excuses. Let's as a community, as an athletic community, coaches, athletes, even honestly, I know I'm not in the situation yet because my kids are really young, but even parents, whether it was my playing days or when I really watch sports, sometimes I think this comes from certain parents' mentalities. And maybe that's a weird thing for me to say since I'm not in that position yet. But I've been on plenty of sidelines. I've been on plenty of in the stands for plenty of games, and you hear some of the excuses that come from parents. Again, of all the reasons why it wasn't their kid's fault. Hey, so as much as you may think so, sometimes your kid is not perfect, and maybe I was just really blessed and fortunate to grow up in the household that I did because my parents never let that be the case. It was never, oh, Josh plays perfect, and anything that goes wrong must have been someone else's fault. But it couldn't have been my son's fault because he is, God's gift to baseball. It was never the case. Like they were always like, hey, we love you. We're going to encourage you. But if you make a mistake, we're going to let you know. It's like, hey, this is an area that you need to improve. It's like, hey, you need to do better. And so I was appreciated that about them. Probably not in the moment. Probably when you're a kid, you're like, man, this kind of sucks. Like, are you sure it was nobody else's fault? Maybe. But looking back, I'm like, man, I really appreciate that because I think it's helped me with my mindset now. Again, not that it's perfect, because there's plenty of times where I'm like, I'll make an excuse right now and explain why it wasn't my fault. But in general, I try my best not to. And again, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, I think as leaders, here on the Home Team Sacramento podcast, Kevin and I have both made it really clear. I think we believe that student athletes are leaders. Kevin calls them SAL, student athlete leaders. Whether you're a bench warmer, whether you're a starter, whether you have the option to go D1 and play at bigger and better stages, whatever your role is on the field, we believe that you're a leader if you wear the uniform of your school. And if you represent that school or that community with your uniform as an athlete, you are a student athlete leader. And as a leader, when it comes to excuses, if you sit there and make excuses, you are robbing not only yourself of becoming the best version of yourself, but you are also robbing your teammates and the people around you of the opportunity to be emboldened by your example. If they see someone that's just making excuses, they're just going to roll their eyes and think, oh, here's another excuse coming from our so-called captain or one of our so-called leaders. But if you have the boldness and the willingness to own up and take responsibility for your mistakes and say, hey, that's on me. I'm not going to point the finger at someone else. I'm just going to point the finger at me and say, hey guys, just know I'm going to do better because I messed up here. When they see that as a leader, you're giving a boldness to everybody else too. That boldness is contagious, because then I think it's going to give everybody else the strength to say, okay, I'm going to own my stuff too. If I make a mistake, I'm not going to point the finger at someone else, because that's not the culture of this team that we've created. The culture of this team is that we take responsibility for what we've done wrong and we learn from it and we get better for the next time. And I think if we can learn how to, as athletes, adopt that mentality and make that a part of our character and who we are, I think that you're going to see the culture of teams get strengthened. I think you're going to see the culture of teams improve, because it's not this blame game. There's not that internal turmoil. We talked about a little while ago, the circle of safety. Like, people know that when you're in that circle, you're safe because no one is pointing fingers at you or other people. They're taking responsibility for their portion of the circle, and the circle becomes stronger for it. Go listen to, I don't know, episode 15. I can't remember, but I think excuses are part of that culture and a part of that mentality as a team that I think is really important. So not making excuses, just take ownership. And I think what happens is you'll become better as a person. And I think the people around you on your team will have more respect for you. And again, like I keep saying, this is stuff that applies to the sports field, the court, the boardroom one day, the office, your family, your community. All these different things I think really apply to everyday life and can benefit you in everyday life. And if we can learn those things now as athletes, as young athletes, then I think it's going to benefit us down the road, rather than trying to learn these things when we already have these pre-established ideas and habits and thoughts. So that's my rant for today. Excuses. Let's not make them. because I would hate to, compete against one of you guys out there on the, basketball court, like rec league basketball court or softball court, and then see one of these coaches or athletes that listen to this making excuses. Like it would hurt my heart, guys. It would really bum me out. So let's not do that. Let's not do that. And I'm going to try my best not to do that either. So as always, we appreciate you guys listening to this. We appreciate you guys and the support. We would love if you could hop over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and review. We definitely appreciate that, and we love sharing the reviews that we get from people on Instagram. It really means a lot. So yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great. You can follow us at Home Team Sac on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you check out our YouTube page, subscribe on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps to follow along. And yeah, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate everybody that's doing so many great things in the community, in the athletic world, both in the classroom, on the field, in the community. We appreciate all of you guys and everybody that's listening to this. You are the reason why we love this home team of here in Sacramento and the surrounding areas. Like everything you guys do, we just get to talk, like specifically me. Like Kevin's out there doing amazing things, speaking and motivating people, but for me, I'm just a podcaster. And I get to kind of ramble and rant about stuff every once in a while, but you guys are the ones that are actually doing the work that we're talking about. And we just appreciate all of you, and we're just excited that bigger and better things are coming for Home Team Sacramento, and we can't wait to start sharing some of those things as they come up. So keep an eye out, stay with us, stay tuned, and help us spread the word about this podcast. And yeah, let's go get it. All right, you guys, take care.